Most people think money is about math. They think it's about spreadsheets, percentages, interest rates, investment strategies, and complicated formulas. But according to Morgan Housel, that view misses the bigger picture. Money is not really about math. It's about behavior. Two people can have the same education, earn the same income, live in the same city, and still end up in completely different financial situations. One slowly builds wealth and gains freedom over time. The other keeps making bad decisions, takes unnecessary risks, and stays financially stressed for years. Why does that happen? Because financial success is not just about what you know, it's about how you behave. And the strange thing is that behavior with money is rarely driven by logic alone. It is often driven by personal experience. Every person grows up with a different financial background. Some people are raised by parents who saved carefully and avoided debt. Others grow up around financial instability, uncertainty, and stress. Some people begin investing during a bull market and see money grow quickly. Others begin during a crash and immediately learn to associate investing with pain. And those experiences shape what feels normal to us. That is one of the most important ideas in this book. People do not make financial decisions based on what is objectively best. They make decisions based on what feels reasonable to them, based on the life they have lived. That means two people can look at the exact same investment opportunity and react in completely different ways. One sees danger, the other sees opportunity. One sees uncertainty, the other sees freedom. And both believe they are being rational. This is why Morgan Housel says that no one is crazy when it comes to money. People simply come from different worlds. They have seen different things, lived through different events, and learned different lessons. If someone grew up during inflation, recession, or unemployment, their financial behavior will be shaped by those memories. If someone watched their parents lose money in the stock market, they may become far more cautious than someone whose family benefited from investing. That difference matters, because once you understand that money is driven by behavior, you stop asking only, "What is the smartest thing to do?" And you start asking a more useful question. What kind of behavior actually leads to long-term wealth? That is what this book tries to answer. And Housel's answer is not based on complicated theories. It is based on timeless patterns in how people think, react, save, invest, and make decisions over time. One of the most powerful ideas in the book is that getting rich and staying rich require completely different skills. Most people focus on getting rich. They think about fast growth, big opportunities, aggressive investing, and taking bold risks. And that can work. Getting rich often does require action. It may require starting a business, making a bold move, buying into uncertainty, or taking a chance before everyone else sees the opportunity. But staying rich is a different game. Staying rich is not about speed. It is about survival. It is about humility. It is about understanding that even smart people can be wrong. Markets can behave irrationally, and unexpected events can destroy years of progress if you are not careful. A lot of people lose money not because they lacked intelligence. They lose money because they kept pushing when they no longer needed to. They had already won, but they still wanted more. They took risks that were no longer necessary. They chased one more deal, one more bet, one more return, one more status symbol, and that is where things often go wrong. This is why one of the most underrated financial skills is knowing when to say, enough. That sounds simple, but it is incredibly rare. Knowing when you have enough money, enough status, enough comfort, or enough success can protect you from making dangerous decisions. Because the biggest risk to your wealth is often not the market. It is your inability to stop. It is your desire for more, even when more creates more danger than reward. Another major idea in the book is the role of luck and risk. When we look at successful people, we love stories that make success look clean and logical. We say they were smarter, more disciplined, more visionary. And sometimes that is true. But Housel reminds us that luck and risk play a much bigger role in outcomes than most people want to admit. Two people can make the same decision. One becomes successful, the other fails. That does not automatically mean one was wise and the other was stupid. Sometimes it means the world treated them differently. Timing matters, circumstances matter, randomness matters. This does not mean skill is irrelevant. It means outcomes are not always a perfect reflection of decision quality. And that is a very important distinction. Because if you ignore luck and risk, you become overconfident when things go well and too harsh on yourself when things go badly. But if you understand luck and risk, you become more humble in success and more resilient in failure. You stop worshiping winners. You stop assuming every loss proves incompetence. And you start thinking more clearly. That mindset alone can save people from years of bad financial behavior. Another central lesson in the psychology of money is the extraordinary power of long-term thinking. Most people want results quickly. They want fast money, fast growth, fast proof that what they are doing is working. And that mindset makes sense emotionally. Waiting is hard. Being patient is uncomfortable. Slow progress often feels invisible. But Housel argues that the real power of money comes from something much slower and much less exciting. Compounding. Compounding is what happens when your money earns returns, and then those returns begin earning returns too. At first, the effect looks small, almost boring, but over time, it becomes massive. That is why time is one of the most important forces in finance. A person who earns decent returns for a very long time can end up far wealthier than someone who earns spectacular returns for only a short period. This is one reason Warren Buffett is such a powerful example. People often focus on his investing skill, and of course he is highly skilled, but a huge part of his success comes from something much simpler. He has been investing for an incredibly long time. Most of his wealth was built not just because he earned strong returns, but because he had decades for compounding to work. That is an idea many people underestimate. We are drawn to intensity, but wealth often comes from consistency. This is why patience is such a powerful financial advantage. If you can avoid panic, avoid unnecessary risks, and stay invested long enough, time can do a lot of the work for you. But that is much harder than it sounds, because markets constantly test your emotions. Prices go up, and people feel greedy. Prices go down, and people feel afraid. News headlines make everything feel urgent. And when emotions rise, people start making decisions that damage long-term results. They sell at the wrong moment. They chase trends too late. They abandon plans that were working simply because the short term became uncomfortable. This is why the psychology part of money matters so much. The hardest part is not usually finding the perfect strategy. The hardest part is sticking with a reasonable strategy long enough for it to work, and that requires emotional control, patience, and a time horizon longer than most people are willing to tolerate. Another powerful idea in the book is that wealth is often invisible. When people imagine being rich, they often picture expensive cars, luxury watches, designer clothes, or giant houses. But those things are not always signs of wealth. Very often they are signs of spending, and that is an important difference. True wealth is what you do not see. It is the money that has not been spent. It is the savings quietly sitting in the background. It is the investments that continue compounding year after year. It is the financial buffer that gives someone options, time, and peace of mind. That is why many truly wealthy people do not look rich. Because wealth is not about impressing people. It is about freedom. Freedom to choose how you spend your time. Freedom to walk away from work you do not enjoy. Freedom to make decisions without being forced by financial pressure. Freedom to think long-term instead of constantly reacting to short-term stress. And according to Housel, that freedom is one of the highest forms of financial success. Not because it looks impressive from the outside, but because it changes how life feels from the inside. It reduces fear. It increases flexibility. It gives you room to breathe. And that freedom usually comes from something very unglamorous. Saving money consistently over long periods of time. Not chasing every opportunity. Not showing off every win. Not trying to look rich. Just building quiet strength in the background. When you step back and look at all the ideas in the psychology of money together, one message becomes clear. Financial success is not about being the smartest person in the room. It is not about predicting every market move. And it is not about finding the perfect investment. It is about behavior. It is about humility. It is about patience. It is about understanding risk, respecting luck, and giving yourself enough time for good decisions to compound. The people who build real wealth are often not the most brilliant. They are the ones who avoid obvious mistakes, stay emotionally stable, and repeat good habits over and over again. That is what turns money into something greater than numbers. It turns money into security, into flexibility, into independence, and ultimately, into freedom. That is the deeper message of the psychology of money. Not that money is only about growing wealth, but that the way you think about money shapes the way you live. And when your behavior improves, your financial future often improves with it.